I'm Dane Young, joined by Brent Rollins. We're looking at Georgia's offense versus Florida State, and so much to choose from that will make Georgia fans very delighted to see. But Brent, overall, as we get into this, what were the things that stood out to you? The mismatch was there. I think that was evident pretty early on in the game. I didn't know that Georgia had come out with the same motivation and intensity and fire, just because every year in a bowl game like this, one of the teams just doesn't seem to have the juice there. That wasn't Georgia. Like, that culture won out.
Very much so. It was a culture win. And I think there was a streak maybe at one point where the team who finished fifth in the playoff rankings, like the year that Georgia got beat by Texas, like there was a streak there for a while where that team that finished fifth lost. I think so Florida State either added to or just became a part of that lore. But what's interesting, and we're going to look at this, is what if I told you that Carson Beck had his lowest rated game and Georgia won by 60?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll show you two of the
passes. And he didn't play the second half.
Are responsible for that. However, well, I'll save it for that point of the show here. We start with Carson Beck, and then all eyes here in the slot, Mr. Lovett.
Yeah, and they had motioned him from one side of the field to the other, and kind of got a lot of man indicators. And I think once he got the man indicator, Lovett just put the move on the guy. And this is one of the things that I thought we'd actually see a lot of in the SEC championship game, trying to find ways to get Lovett matched up in the middle of the field and working, sort of two-way goes, oftentimes sort of in the middle of that. But he made plays. He made plays all year. And he had the sort of the quietest 53 catch, almost 700 yards, 4 touchdown seasons maybe you can think of, really, when you look back at it.
And when we're doing this Film Don't Lie, I think we're going to project ahead to some of this, of what this means for Georgia next year. With Ladd McConkey gone, this role becomes exclusively Lovett's.
Yep.
I think.
And I think you even use him more so than you did this year. And he was the second most targeted guy. Bowers only had him by 1 target. So 70 targets, I think, for him.
This looks like a bit more of what we saw with Lovett at Missouri, of a little bit of space, catch it,
find ways to get him one-on-one and let him just win, because he does, and he does it consistently.
Next up, we're going to look at fake reverse to him.
Okay, so this was one of my 2, maybe 3 favorite plays that they ran in this game. One, the reverse action. Like, what the reverse action, I don't think we've seen this, all to my recollection. I don't know that we've seen that in some way, maybe a little bit with some orbit, things like that, but not true sort of fake it. Truss does a phenomenal job of washing down his block. And then look what the reverse does to the edge. That guy just sits and waits, and Milton cuts like he doesn't have to be touched at all. The backside defensive end for Florida State.
Stand by. We have a slight video.
Yeah, I think I was messing with it earlier, and you got to use the bigger to go back.
Yeah.
And it's not going forward is slow is not going to be much of a thing, but going back, it does allow that. I was noticing that was messing with things a little bit earlier. But that backside edge, like, he's not even blocked. He's just hanging out, and then go. And Milton, great vision, seeing flow. This is actually, by the way, in terms of projecting Kendall Milton to the NFL. And obviously he had a great season. We'll talk about him more a little bit on the big run. But this is an offense I think he thrives in. Pistol, two-way go, see flow, one cut, get downhill. And that's what he does. 20 sees things, he's late, go, all that. But the other thing that's amazing about this is last year after the national championship game, they ran a couple of the plays, and we actually showed it on Film Live, a couple of plays in pistol. And I thought with Carson Beck and a sort of non-run threat QB, you would go more pistol. This was the 4th carry of the entire season from the pistol formation. One of those was a goal line carry.
Yeah.
I think their offense has to evolve with him being a non-ranked to help their running game and get to kind of look a lot like what Alabama looked like in 2020 with Najee Harris in the backfield and Mac Jones at quarterback.
This last month for Kendall Milton, I think he's earned himself some NFL money.
He's made himself draftable. 100% made himself draftable. Yes.
He needs to have a good combine too, but you look at him and you say, yeah, that's a guy that you can invest in a little bit at running back. And that's hard to say because there's a lot of good running backs that don't even get to that level.
And what's amazing when you think about that is he had I think he had like 684 snaps in his career at Georgia. He's obviously dealt with injuries a lot, but in terms of his actual attempts, what's he had in his career? It's not a ton. 298 attempps.
Yeah, he shared carries with a busy backfield
because of the things that he's had, and that'll get him pushed down, I think, to the later rounds of the draft, 6th, 7th round type. But it's still worth an investment for a team, especially the team that runs pistol.
We talked about Carson Beck, not the highest rated game that he's had. 2 throws in particular that were pretty egregious. This one of them.
This is one of those what in the world kind of plays. I saw this live and I thought, what in the world is he throwing at? I don't know if he thought Arian Smith was going to cross the corner's face here.
We have the pressure.
But think about what he's got here. You've got pressure in his face, and then you've got pressure that he's feeling. Like, go look back at what Cedric Van Pran, I think, and then Xavier Truss, both. Like, Truss kind of that guy acts like he's 11, acts like he's going to back away. Truss then looks inside, and then 11 says, okay, I'll rush. And then Van Pran gets beat, boom, and then this should have been a pick.
The evolution of Carson Beck, as I see it, because he can make all the throws, and
we saw all of them.
He's gotten so much better than first week of the season to now. Like, it's been a great evolution this year for Carson Beck. This play, throw it away, because you're good enough to make all the throws. And I think the coolest thing about him is that he had this play, and we're going to show you what comes next. And
well, before we get to that, one thing I think that next year, and I don't know this in terms of how much they have freedom within specifically receivers. And I'm sure maybe more experienced guys obviously have a lot more freedom. But on that play that we're looking at, Anthony Evans, true freshman, in the slot, there's no one around him. And because those guys rush and move forward. And does he in the future get his head around, kind of break off the route a little bit just because he's so wide open versus head down, sprinting, that sort of thing, getting to where I need to be. But again, this was one of 3, by the way, one of 3 turnover worthy plays that he had. His 2 lowest graded games in terms of Beck, SEC championship game, this game.
Yeah.
And the other amazing part is we talked about it all season. So in the regular season, 1 through 12, he had 7 turnover worthy plays. Last 2 games, he had 5.
Yeah.
They just didn't catch it or recover the fumble when he got sacked once.
Eyes here on Ladd McConkey at the bottom, because this is gorgeous.
Release quick, and by the way, release from Beck. It's his sort of superpower is the quick release, the ability to just put the foot in the ground and the ball comes out so quick. Ladd stopping that route exactly where it needs to be. This is, Cooper Kupp or Tyler Lockett or all those Diggs, like all those guys that work these routes and work them so quickly in the NFL. It's that. And then the yak.
Well, and it's understanding assignments here too, because if you watch this in real time, inside linebacker 4 here, you say, oh, he's running right into McConkey's path here. Yeah, but he's not worried about McConkey. He's following Kendall Milton back here.
And just getting into his space. And also, boom,
Now, sometimes the defensive player gets lucky in that spot and the ball hits them where they see it and they react to it. But that window's there because that guy's not worried about McConkey.
Yeah, no. And I think I looked, I think it was right around 800. Ladd had right at 1,700, a little less than 1,700 receiving yards in his career. Right around 800 were after the catch.
This, like you say, the quick release with Beck and then just to fire it. Like it's quick release, but it's power too. Like that's when he's at his best.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And like you said, this was right after a bad play.
Right. So you have the bad play, and then you have this right after it. To me, that shows the fearlessness of a Carson Beck. And Stetson Bennett had to get to that level. Now, he would do it in kind of dumb improvisation mode. And Carson Beck being able to make a bad play, come behind it, and make a spectacular play. And there'll be a better example of this in just a minute. I think that's probably what makes him award-worthy Georgia championship worthy in a lot of ways from that position. And I'm excited to see what that turns into next year. Your hope is that he matures the next level of don't have that bad mistake on the first play. Like, give that play away, throw it into the ground, throw it to the check down if it's there. If you can avoid those turnover worthy plays that you always talk about, that's just the next level of make you NFL ready. Because if you have 2 to 3 turnover worthy plays in the NFL, you get benched.
Yeah. Or you become Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder.
Or you're on a team that has no better options. Yes.
Yes, 100%.
Next up here, this is Kendall Milton, and really good effort here from Ernest Green at the top to open this up.
And Micah Morris at left guard, like both of those guys. And I think that's the starting left side of your offensive line next year. I mean, Dylan Fairchild, maybe, and maybe they just continue the rotation, but you got to find a way to get sort of both of those guys in the game. But, Milton just absolutely punishes this safety. Like, whew, get out of my way. He peaked. He absolutely saved his best for last. Like I talk about Beck not saving his best for last, Milton did. And the last 6 games, unreal. Absolutely unreal from him.
He had just a few carries and then MVP. Like, that's the caliber of game that he had. Didn't play most of the rest of it.
Now, and so let's think about Milton's sort of career for a second. Attempts, yards, touchdowns, yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced. Every metric that you look at that is sort of an individual running back metric went up every single season. Now, you say a lot of this health, it's health and a combination of health and opportunity, but he's absolutely played his best at the final part of his career.
Let's talk about Oscar Delp for a second, a little drag here.
And this is naked bootleg off pin and pull. I don't know that I can't recall seeing this all season. So there were 3 plays in this game that I don't recall seeing at any point in the season. This was one of them. And because typically that was a give. I mean, there may have been one that, I just can't recall, but I think this is something you need to do more of, especially early in the season next year. Just to, Beck is a great pocket passer, 1, 2, 3, ball out, read it, go. Keep evolving this part of his game and doing it more. Just to have it when you need it, make it a threat. And then the hurdle.
So I made the joke on Twitter, and I was being just a little cheeky, like my Twitter voice tends to be, and just saying, like, have Oscar Delp style confidence. But I'm not being that cheeky because I don't think that I'm as confident in anything on this earth as he was in doing this. And like, he's got ups. He did pretty good, I thought. And Todd Hartley then told him on Twitter, just run through his chin strap. Don't be trying that.
And always what's amazing to me, and you think about football now versus football 15, 20 years ago, they don't wear pads. They wear shoulder pads. Outside of wearing shoulder pads, like, they don't wear pads. 20 years ago, he's got big, thick hip pads on, and this is not that big of a deal.
He doesn't even cover his knees anymore.
But they don't even cover their knees. And I will say, so Tom, we saw that several powers, not off of that run action. That's the thing I'm mainly pointing out, is that specific run action, play action, things like that. But it's great. It's fun. It's great that it's awesome that Coach Hartley gets on Twitter, makes fun of his players and talks about that stuff. That's great too.
This one is where Cedric Van Pran got a lot of love for laying that dude out on the 8-yard line. To me, the funnier part was Tate Ratledge doing everything he's supposed to be doing, and then getting out here. There's nobody for me.
Like, okay, what I do? Let me wave at you.
Yeah, a little trash talk.
Yes. And good on Arian. Like, because what happened early in the game, they wanted to get him a touch, right? You want to get him that easy touch. They run a screen to him, and he starts to run forward before he has the ball. Now, the ball wasn't perfectly thrown, but it was on his back hip, and he started to run, and he drops it. So now you get him another easy touch and a touchdown because, as of this moment that we're doing this, though, people say they're coming back and put their names in the portal 2 days later, Julian Humphrey,
or vice versa.
Yeah.
Where they say they're going in the portal and then they're coming back.
Arian Smith has said nothing to this point. And this was someone who walked on senior day. Like, he's only been, Is he?
Doesn't mean he couldn't do it again.
Year? Yes, exactly. Who knows? But I was curious, so I went and looked it up. Guess how many touches he has in his career at Georgia?
Over
somebody who everybody knows the potential, right, and the speed and all the things. What's the career number of touches?
I'd say over under is like 15.
23.
Okay, so I was under.
So 20
I played your game poorly. I should have said like 84.
It's good, but 20 catches, 3 rushes, 23 touches for 578 yards, 25 yards a touch. 25 yards a touch, 6 touchdowns. So 1 out of every 4 times he touches the ball, it's a touchdown. Like, if he could just go to the Jamar Chase pre-2019, 1,000 balls a day on the jugs school.
Because I was about to, he probably has like 5 or 6 drops.
Yeah.
So that ratio is not great either.
No.
But when he gets the ball in space, it's money.
Yep.
So that's the Arian touchdown there. This is the second of the almost interceptions for Carson Beck. And I think I know what he was trying to do here, because Mr. Lovett finds himself in the middle of the field here.
Right.
But that ball goes nowhere near him.
And 11 at the last second jumps in his way.
Yes.
A little bit. In the Fairchild here, who, by the way, was a phenomenal pass blocker all season, and at one point, about 3/4 of the way through the season, hadn't given up pressure. That's his one for this game. At left guard, gets beat. Boom. That's what causes him to step up. I want to say, I'd like to see Lovett maybe working more so back to the QB on first, but given this first down, by the way, not necessarily if it's third down, get to the sticks, but you run these routes in practice all the time, that sort of stuff. But again, this is pressure. Should be a pick. It's not, but that's why for those that read UGAsports.com and read the PFF grades, and they see that the lowest graded offensive player in the game was Carson Beck. It's the only game he had less than 60. It's the only passing grade he had less than 60 all year, which 60 is kind of the baseline. So, and it's because of this and the fumble.
I made the point on the post-game overreaction show that he and Gunnar Stockton, who we'll talk about more in a separate video, are pretty much opposite in their skill sets here. Where Gunnar thrives in chaos and making things happen in improvisation. Stetson Bennett did that too. Carson Beck, when he's on schedule, is money. When things go off schedule a little bit, or he tries to improvise, sometimes he can do it and he can scramble, and he's made some plays. I'm not trying to say he's horrible at this, but his mistakes more often than not come from the improvisational standpoint.
And it's however it is that you want to work on it. When it's just you, it's what he's got to work on. And so much of that is instinct and feel, and you just have it or you don't kind of thing. But there's ways to create chaos and work on it, and he'll do that.
He did have it's tough to look for the check down here when you are in the pocket and this is in your face. But look, I just want to take cash, okay?
Yeah.
Just let me talk about.
Well, he's going to be there later. But this is when people ask, "Hey, you won by 60. Your quarterback, I forget what his actual box score stats in the game were. It was really like 18 of something maybe, but it was only a few incompletions. How do you have that low of a PFF grade? This is why. Because you have balls that should be picks that aren't ended up as picks.
Now, again, the compliment out of this is that you have this play. The defense doesn't take advantage of it. You come right back and go with this masterpiece, which may be his best throw of the season.
Well, the other one to Bell, I think, was probably, but this was just as good. Like, that's the 2 throws to Bell down that same sideline were phenomenal. And this is what you want from Dylan Bell, by the way.
I just looked at this and I said, this is NFL.
That's, again, I agree. 100%. And Bell, 2 out of 3 contested catches in this game, 50% contested catches on the season. Him and Rosemary Jackson. Rosemary Jackson was first, I think, at 64%, 7-11. Those are the only 2 above 50. And Dylan Bell has to be this guy next year. Like, he has to be the man. And I think he can be for them. I think he 100% can be that guy that gets 8 to 10 to 12 touches, 8 to 10 touches a game, and gets 100 yards a game kind of thing.
The other thing I like is that there's 44 seconds on the clock. You're in decent field position. You have all 3 timeouts. This situation, maybe the score dictates this too, but first month of the season, Carson Beck, this is something within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Try to get some yak, try to move the chains.
Field goal range, get in field goal range.
Not anymore. And some of that's probably him and Mike Bobo growing together. And him and Dylan Bell growing together. Like, it takes time for those things to happen. For them to do what they did this year, to be as comfortably aggressive as they've gotten with this, I think that's why there's so much reason to be excited going into next season.
You're going to be preseason number 1, number 2, potentially, I think.
I was about to make a joke and say one step lower than Ole Miss, right?
I mean...
That's only because you said they're preseason top 5, and then our own staff was like, "Huh?
Wait, what? No, yeah."
That's for an off-season chat, because I'd love to delve into that more. But yes, Georgia will be a top 5 team. They'll probably be top 3. You could even make the argument they're the second preseason next year. We'll see. Depends on a lot of factors, but you have to think
the teams that are playing in that game, they're losing literally their entire roster almost.
Yeah, potentially. You look at returning stuff, no one is going to be better than what Georgia has going into it.
And they got a QB. And like you said, you mentioned this with Stetson. Like, think about Stetson's first year as a starter compared to a second year. Light years of growth. Just so much better. Now, can you see that? Do you get to see that from Carson Beck next year? We get to see, because he's coming back.
Yeah, and that's exciting. And you don't have to worry about an offensive coordinator leaving. Mike Bobo is going to be right back there. So this is not trying to relearn how someone else runs the system or anything.
You're adding portal talent, as Mr. Curtis Maximus points out.
You lose Bowers, you lose McConkey, but think about some of those players we just mentioned that are back. They love it. The Dylan Bell, Ra Thomas would be healthy again. And then the portal guys coming in, the freshman guys that are coming in. Yep. So I think offensively, we can't rave enough about just what Georgia did to Florida State. But upon rewatching it, it wasn't as perfect as this sounds absurd for me to even say this, but like first quarter, that game was a little bit closer than you ever would have remembered based on the final score.
It was an avalanche, a slow forming avalanche.
Yeah.
And once it got rolling, it was full-fledged 100 miles an hour down the hill.
That was that. And look, even with Brock Glenn, I was kind of impressed with how he throws the ball. So if Florida State can find players, like,
I was not impressed with how and we'll get to this when we talk defense. I was not impressed with how Florida State managed that game. Like, they played that game just to get the game over with.
Yeah.
And that was frustrating to see. They should have let it rip the whole game.
If you're watching live, we're doing 3 lives tonight, and the next one is about Georgia's defense. So we're going to hop out of here, hop into that stream, so people that aren't watching live don't have to wade through an hour's worth of content to find. Maybe they just want to only watch defense. But we should mention that we're sponsored by Breda Pest Management and ASW Distillery. They've been season-long sponsors of Film Don't Lie, and we are really grateful for them. If you like what we do, subscribe to this channel. We appreciate your support of UGA Sports. We're talking defense just a couple minutes here on our YouTube and Facebook page. See y'all then.